Right, Rodolfo?
Yes, sir.
It is. All right. Guys ready? Okay, let's get going in that case. Good evening.
Good.
The little hiatus there. You guys all got a chance to, got a chance to come to State of the City? Because I saw most of you. And you could see everything is on video. So all you have to do is go to the homepage, and there's a link right there for the State of the City, so you can watch the whole thing if you didn't get a chance to attend. Hopefully, it was very informative, and hope you had a good time and ate some good stuff. Somewhere along the line this evening, we will take a little break, and before we're all done, I'm going to remind you about attending a city council meeting and a planning and zoning meeting, and actually I have dates in a slide up later on, and remind me to check and see if you have either canceled or are planning for meetings on those days, so we can tell everybody. Don't forget, bathrooms there if anybody needs to go, and like I said, we'll figure out a place where we can take a break somewhere along the line if we keep going. Okay. What does development services mean? Anybody? Really? Are your brains frozen too? You want to guess? Licensing. Close. Close. You're on the right track. Jody can't answer. She's not allowed. Well, in that case, you're going to find out. This is actually one of the largest sort of departments in the city. Handles a number of different things that our director will tell you all about here in just a moment. So we're actually going to see several different sections of development services. It's so big, it gets its own night. And so you will hear from the different areas tonight. We're going to hear from building safety, and we're going to hear from code enforcement, and we're going to hear from folks talking about our wonderful new development that's going on down south. But we start, of course, with a director, and the director we're very lucky to have because he's been around for, I think it's 57 years. How long have you been here, Rudy? 30?
33.
33, wow. It wasn't even a city yet. Rudy has been in the department, in the Development Services Department for 33 years. He's started out with a lot of different roles. He's moved up in the organization and took over as director a year ago. Wow. I won't tell you where he went to college, but he is from Southern Arizona, so that's going for him. But he has been the director. He knows probably just about everything you need to know about every piece of property in this town. That's my guess. But he is the director, so I'm going to have him give you a quick hello and tell you some of the folks who are going to speak to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Director of Development Services for the City of Apache Junction, Mr. Rudy Esquivias.
Thank you, Al. Al is my favorite wildcat. Like Al said, my name is Rudy Esquivias. I'm the Development Services Director. I've been with the city for a little over 33 years, going on 34 years actually. Next June will be 34 years. I became director just a little over a year ago. And I've seen obviously a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of new businesses come and go, and housing developments pop up all over the place, and seen a lot of growth, a lot of change in Apache Junction since I got here. For example, when I first got here, the population was just over 18,000. Now we're at about 40,000. And of course, we've always fluctuated to about another 25, 30,000 in the wintertime with all of our friends visiting from colder country into our plus or minus 125 mobile home and RV parks. So it makes for some very interesting dynamics as far as, the year-round population versus the wintertime population. AJ is an exciting place, never a dull moment, like I like to say. And today we're going to talk a little bit about development services. Hopefully won't keep you here too long, but give you an idea, this wonderful program that Al's put together inform citizens about how city government works. And one of these departments is our Development Services Department. And basically, we have three groups in development services. We actually have a couple more, and I'll touch on those in a bit. We have the planners, which is the planning division. We have the building division, which is building safety. And we also have revenue development. So, and each of these three divisions then oversee or facilitate other boards in the city that are made out of citizens just like you guys. And one of the main reasons for having citizen leadership is hopefully some of our citizen graduates will go on to volunteer and serve on some of our boards and commissions. That way you go in kind of with a running start and you know a little bit more about the city. For example, the Planning and Zoning Commission. They are an advisory committee to the city council. They help the city council on rezoning matters, development matters, subdivisions, code changes, code amendments. Those are the types of things that the Planning and Zoning Commission normally reviews, makes recommendations on, and then their recommendations go on to the city council. The Planning and Zoning Commission also has the authority to approve what are called conditional use permits. A conditional use permit is a type of land use case where maybe something is not necessarily prohibited by the zoning district, but because it's a land use that may have more impacts as far as traffic and circulation and you know other issues that may need to be considered before it's approved to go into a certain area, our Planning and Zoning Commission makes a decision on those things as well. We also have a Board of Adjustment. If someone wants to apply for a variance, if someone disagrees with a zoning interpretation, that's why we have a Board of Adjustment. Folks can appeal those types of decisions. There's always a way of appealing a decision that a citizen doesn't like, or perhaps there are extenuating circumstances. That's why our Board of Adjustment exists. A new commission that we have is our Public Arts Commission, which came into effect just a couple of years ago. We now, as part of our building permits revenue generation, we also have a public arts fee, and the public arts fee goes to fund public art projects throughout the city. And the Planning and Zoning Commission is made out of 7 members. The Board of Adjustment is made out of 7 members. Our Public Arts Commission is made out of 5 members per a recent direction from the City Council. They also had a 7-member board, but that will be changing here fairly soon. Building and safety. Building and safety are the folks who review building permits, who review construction, who do inspections, who make sure that buildings are built to code, that they're safe, that the public or the private citizens that are going to be occupying those buildings, living in those buildings, will have a safe and properly constructed structures to move into. And once again, if someone disagrees with the decision that the building official makes, or they disagree with the way a certain code is written, there is also an appeals board for that called the Construction Code Board of Appeals, although in all the time I've been here, I don't think anything's ever gone to the Construction Code Board of Appeals, but it's there should someone need it. And then lastly is revenue development. You may have heard already from Fox Young. Yes. Okay, Fox is also in our department, although he kind of is an independent operator. I don't need to supervise him very much because Fox is wonderful in what he does. And he also handles a couple of, or is the liaison, I should say, for a couple of citizen organizations, one called the Friends of Apache Junction, and the other one called the Community Development Corporation. And these are groups of folks who help fund various projects around the city. For example, some of our cleanup projects. We have some properties where perhaps it's an elder property owner, perhaps they have some health issues, the property has fallen into a state of disrepair. This is where the Friends, this is where the CDC would step in to help in those types of situations, as well as other things. You know, They fund the police explorers and things like that. Some good folks in the community out there doing some good work, and Fox is the gentleman who coordinates those groups. Now, in addition to these divisions you see here, we also have engineering review. You know, along with construction, is engineering. You know, how is the street in front of this particular property going to be developed? You know, who's going to put in the sidewalk, who's going to put in the pavement, who's going to inspect for that kind of stuff? So that's typically what our engineers do. They also review for on-site water retention. Anytime that you take a vacant piece of land and that has accommodated water in a certain way in its natural state, now you put a building on it, now you put concrete on it, where's that water going to go? Well, that's also what our engineers review for and look for, and they have their own codes which regulate those kinds of things. And Sydney, in a little while, is going to talk about of all the work that our principal engineer has done as far as the development of the master plan communities to the south here. We have an engineer in our department that basically focuses exclusively on what's going on with the master plan communities, and we have a couple of other engineers in our office, Sam and Orlando, who help folks with everyday issues, you know, on-site development issues, whether they be residential, whether they be new commercial infill projects, those kinds of things. So we also have an engineering division, and even though JC is not really part of our department, we also have a couple of gentlemen in our department who create all these wonderful maps that you find online, our community view or our GIS maps, our parcel maps, and all the information that goes on those types of maps to help folks in the community learn more about the city, look at the aerials, find out where things are, find out what's going on in town. You know, hey, what's going on the corner of Superstition and Valley? You can go on the public viewer and get information about those types of projects. And JC and Sean and Justin are the folks who shepherd that whole effort, and they do an amazing job, and they're also housed in our department. So Adrian is our building and safety manager. In a little bit, Adrian's going to talk about building safety, which once again includes plan review. It includes the issuance of permits, and every time you issue a permit, there, of course, there's also inspections, phased inspection process to make sure buildings, houses, businesses are being built to code, being built to meet all the safety codes, as well as ADA codes, you know, because folks with disabilities also need to be able to get around in our public buildings, and even though the ADA codes are actually federal codes, whenever someone proposes to build a commercial development or industrial development in the city, we also check for those types of codes to make sure that all of our citizens have access to buildings and restaurants and shops and things like that. Building inspections, building counter, customer service. We talk to folks every single day. You know, do I need a permit to build a fence? Do I need a permit to build a shed? Do I have to get a permit to you know, add an awning to my house? That we on a daily basis deal with those types of customer service issues on the phone, in person, online, in every medium you can probably imagine. And for folks who are perhaps maybe thinking about doing a construction project or have construction questions, we have our website, mypermitnow.org. All of our permit submittals, we're trying to become a paperless city, and you know, some of us struggle with that. Some of our young people are very computer literate. They don't have any problem with it at all. Me? Well, but anyway, we now have our online permitting process, which a lot of folks find very convenient, because from their homes they can send us the information they need to be able to process a permit application. So we'll also have a presentation from our friend Kimberly, who will talk about code compliance. What does code compliance do? Well, they're the folks who help clean up properties. They're the folks who deal with properties when they fall in a state of disrepair, or where unpermitted businesses are occurring, or someone's building without a permit. Code is also involved in those types of things. And we try as much as possible to gain voluntary compliance. We don't like taking people to court. We don't like for people to get fined. So we work with people to try and bring them to compliance, and occasionally, you know, it has to go to a different level, but code compliance is out there doing a lot of good work in the community, keeping the community looking neat, looking clean. And there's obviously a lot of work to do in Apache Junction, but that's where our code folks come in. Complaint-based and proactive, mostly complaint-based, actually, unless they're out in the field and they see something that's obviously a code issue, particularly where it may involve a health and safety situation. They'll probably be more proactive in those types of situations. But for the most part, it's complaint-based, and we do accept anonymous complaints. So if your neighbor is building something right on your property line or over your property line, and they, you've talked to them and it goes on, you can either call in anonymously, or you can leave your name and number if you want to, but or something's happening down the street. A lot of time we'll receive complaints anonymously in that fashion as well. This statement here, realtors have to avoid properties to show other properties. We've heard that quite a bit, actually, where some of our neighborhoods, we have a lot of older neighborhoods. Keep in mind that much of Apache Junction, particularly West Apache Junction, and by west I mean west of Idaho, was built before the community was even incorporated. Basically Apache Junction sprung up back in the 40s or late 30s, and it was not incorporated. And a lot of construction, a lot of development happened out here. A lot of homes went up, businesses went up, but the city did not incorporate until late 1978. I think it was November of 1978 that the city officially became a city with its own internal government. So a lot of what we have out there is grandfathered. A lot of what we have out there is older construction, a lot of older mobile homes. So some of those older neighborhoods have become problem areas, and some of our realtors tell us that they have to drive around strategically to avoid folks showing some of the problem neighborhoods when they're trying to sell homes. Well, we're hoping to fix that then, and that's why we have code compliance. We also have planning and zoning, which Sydney's going to talk about in a little bit. Planning and zoning, like I said, the planning division are the folks who shepherd the Board of Adjustment. The Planning and Zoning Commission, of course, we also do presentations before our city council. We also do a lot of intergovernmental liaison kind of work. When there's something that the county's doing and it's within a mile or two of our jurisdiction, they'll often ask us for comments. When our friends in Mesa have something going on that's near our city border, we'll coordinate with them. There's intercity coordination, there's city to county coordination, and then there's a couple of groups. One's called MAG, Maricopa Association of Governments. The other one's called CAG, which is Central Arizona Association of Governments, and there's ADOT, of course, and there's the Forest Service. So there's a lot of intergovernmental coordination that goes on, and to a great extent, the planners are often involved in that, especially when it involves the construction of roads or the planning of roads or new businesses or a new large industrial development might be going in a neighboring city. We want to coordinate all those types of things. We also are the keepers and the shepherds of the zoning ordinance. That is that book that nobody likes that tells you what you can do on your property. We try to follow the council's direction, the council's policies on how they want Apache Junction to look like. One of those implementation tools is the zoning ordinance. The other one, of course, is our general plan, which we are very happy to say that 75% of the voters approved our general plan back in 2020. So it got a lot of support, and then the zoning ordinance then helps implement the general plan. And we also do, like I mentioned, matters of zoning interpretation, code interpretation, administration, and we also help in the development review process. Our friend Adrian, they get a permit submittal. The planners also look at those plans to make sure that the buildings are not exceeding the heights. Building height is a very big issue here in Apache Junction, that the correct height, that they're meeting the setbacks, that they have adequate parking, adequate circulation. So the planners also get involved in that kind of process. And of course, new development proposals or proposed changes to the codes are taken to our Planning and Zoning Commission for their consideration. I mentioned the general plan just a little bit ago, approved by the AJ voters in August of 2020 by a 75% vote. It is truly a community plan. It was put together internally, in-house, with folks from all of our various departments. We also got input from police department. We got input from school district. We got input from our local fire district, from the district, from Friends of the Water Company. So it was truly a collaborative local effort. I think that's why it was a successful plan, because we sent out surveys. We got, I forget how many, about 2,000 survey respondents, so we made sure that we had public input in our general planning process as well. And at the end of the day, and then our good friend Matt over here, who's in the control room, helped organize the document and produce it in a booklet form, and came out very nice, came out very beautiful. We're happy with it. The majority of the public's happy with it. So, and once again, this is one of the implementation tools that we use to plan land uses in Apache Junction. And this is our future land use map. It is a conceptual map. If you go online and zoom in, it'll show you some amazing detail. We've given you a copy tonight, but if you go online, it's a much more informative tool. You'll see some wonderful features on that map, and good information on that map. This is not a zoning map. This is a conceptual land use map. What does that mean? Well, basically this map shows us where residential should go, where the city should plan to put commercial, where the city should plan to put industrial uses, multifamily uses, open spaces. Different types of land uses are basically controlled by the general plan, so that when a development proposal comes in, one of the first things the planners do is make sure that it is in compliance with the general plan. Cities are allowed to amend their general plan. It used to be once every 10 years. Now the legislature changed it to once a year. There's a definition in the general plan for what is a major amendment, what is a minor amendment. Major amendment basically involves a land area of 10 acres or more. Not only do you have to go through a rezoning process, but you also have to go through a general plan amendment process. Amending the general plan is a bit difficult because it involves, a lot of community input, as opposed to a rezoning, which basically goes to more like a neighborhood input kind of a process, Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, and City Council approval. But these are the tools that Development Services uses to help accommodate development proposals. And lastly, I mentioned JC, our city website. We have a development viewer that shows you the new projects that are going on in Apache Junction. We have all of our zoning maps on our GIS page on our website. We have flood zone maps. Apache Junction, as you know, is right next to the beautiful Superstition Mountains, and because of that, we literally have hundreds of little tributaries that crisscross the city, and some of those are significant flood zone channels that carry a lot of water when we have a good rain event. That's why a lot of times, you'll see our public works crews out there cleaning up the streets and the silt and the dirt after we get a good rain, because you wouldn't think about it, because 99% of the year those little channels are dry, and all of a sudden your streets flooded or roads get flooded, particularly in the more rural parts of town, because those little washes can really come alive, and some of them are FEMA regulated flood zones. So our flood zone map is also very important when it comes to looking at development proposals and see how water may be affected or flood zones may affect a certain property. So please visit us online if you're wanting to file a permit, if you're looking for zoning information, if you're looking for other types of zoning information. We have all of that online. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions before Kimberly comes up and does her little presentation. Yes, ma'am. Rick is no longer with us. He was a code compliance officer, and he retired a couple of years ago. About a year ago.
An engine of any kind of thing repaired out of his garage. His front yard is full of some one time 5 golf carts. I've counted them. I've got pictures. Multiple cars, trucks, motorcycles, ATVs. I had to build a block wall to keep him out of my yard. And in all these engines make grease, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he runs a welding out of his garage. Grease and welding don't mix, as we keep seeing downtown Phoenix.
Right.
He had an engine fire, I think it was last year. I had to call 911, he couldn't put it out with his garden hose. This has become very frustrating. I've lived next door to this man for 10 years, fighting him with this zoning thing. His
Okay.
yard's a mess, he's a fire hazard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Please give us a call. Give us that address. We will investigate.
oh, good.
Yeah.
Which person is gonna call?
Kimberly, right here. Yeah.
Other questions?
There you go.
You betcha, because I got nowhere with Rick and I kept calling him.
Yeah.
Come on in and have coffee with me sometime. You can just see. Oh, I will.
Yes, ma'am. In the back there.
I make a mean banana.
As far as shipping containers,
Yes.
and if they're grandfathered in, is that going to be on the website? 'Cause-
There are no grandfathered shipping containers.
Okay.
Now, shipping containers may be allowed. As a matter of fact, one of the more recent code changes.
Only one, right?
On a residential property, and even now on a commercial, well, on a commercial property, you can have 2 8x20 containers. On a residential property, you can have 1 container up to 8x40. But the way the code is currently written, even on a residential property, they are only allowed on the large lot, acre and a quarter or larger properties. Our code was amended within the last couple of years to be maybe just a little bit more flexible, but it may be looked at again because we're getting ready to do another zoning ordinance update, not a new zoning ordinance, but certain parts of the code need to be updated. One of the things that is still a little problematic is the accessory buildings code, because cargo containers ended up being lumped in with accessory buildings. It's caused quite a bit of confusion, so we're going to try and make some changes to the code to maybe provide a little more clarity. We have not gotten direction from council to allow cargo containers on properties smaller than an acre and a quarter, but, you know, once we start going through the process, you never know what other changes might be done.
Okay, yeah. Because I had a situation where I moved into a property 3 years ago that had 3 shipping containers, and I guess we had to go sell them because I was getting, it's either you sell them or I get fined every year for having them on there. But my realtor told me that I was grandfathered in, and so I just wanted to make sure, there's nothing grandfathered in before 1978.
Always call us. Always
Right,
call
so
us.
that
I
was,
love realtors.
it would have helped to call you guys 3 years ago before we sold all 3 of them. It would have been nice to.
Right.
But thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Anything else?
Any more?
All right.
All right, Rudy, go ahead and introduce
Like
her.
Kimberly Wilson up here to do the next part of the presentation.
How's everybody doing tonight? Great. My name's Kimberly Wilson, as Mr. Esquivias just said. I'm the Senior Code Officer for the City of Apache Junction. Also in our audience, we have our other Senior Code Officer, and we have total of 5 officers right now. I'm going to show you guys a short video, and there it goes. All by itself. Short video and a slideshow. Okay, I've got it. Okay, got it. Now comes the slideshow. As I said, I'll take some questions afterwards. I'm also going to leave some of my business cards up here by the sign-up sheet. So if you think of anything later, you can email me or call me. Happy to answer your questions. As Mr. Skevius just said, we are part of the Development Services Department. And code compliance works in partnership with the residents and businesses of the city. We also try to get compliance by just, talking to the citizens and trying not to take it to another level. But we also try to make the community a safe and clean place. There's some examples of things we deal with sometimes, and this, you may know some properties like this next door to you or on your street. The one on the left became the one on the right. Our goal is to administer a fair and equitable program emphasizing voluntary compliance, and we do the property maintenance code, nuisances, zoning, and building safety. If somebody's building something without a permit, we can look into that for you and take the appropriate action to get them to come to compliance and get the permits so their building is safe when they're done building it. We want to create and maintain a safe and healthy environment. We want to, of course, maintain the physical and aesthetic, prevent the physical and aesthetic deterioration of the community, protect the values of residents, property values of residents and businesses, reduce vandalism and deter crime. If you ever see broken windows on a house, it attracts vagrants, children can get hurt there. That's what we call a public nuisance. Establish a framework for community involvement to resolve public nuisances. Encourage both residential and commercial property owners to voluntarily solve code violations on their properties in order to ensure that the Apache Junction remains a community that is clean, safe, and a safe place to work, live, and play. Ways to report a violation, several ways. You can physically come into the office, and I want to emphasize that even if you give us your name, we do not divulge that to anybody. That we do not do that. You can call us. Here is the hotline number. Exactly, you got it. In writing, you can send us a letter, anonymous, with your name. As I said previously, we do not give out the names of the complainants. We just don't want retaliation or anything. Email, and also my email is on the cards here. We also have MyGov Online, which is our newer version of the online code complaint process. Replaced our old one, and this one's more updated and works really well. How are code violations enforced? Code compliance officers respond to complaints according to the impact of the violation on the community. So we put it in order of priority, like something that's really bad. We'll attack first. Situations that pose a serious risk to health and safety are given top priority. Others are pursued in the order that they are received, like weeds and things like that. For all code complaints, the first step is for a code compliance officer to verify that the violation exists, and we do get false claims that somebody's doing this and that, and they're not. Courtesy notice of violation is sent to the resident or legal property owner, who is given the opportunity to voluntarily correct the situation in a timely manner. It doesn't always happen, but there are other routes. If the correction is not made in a reasonable amount of time, the individual may be subject to further enforcement action. And this is the code we just rewrote on April 1st, 2019. It's called Chapter 9. It's a property maintenance code that handles weeds, inoperable vehicles, trash. It's also the code online if you want to read through it. It's really exciting. We've got exterior property and premises. Garbage shall only be stored in approved receptacles designed to prevent leakage, access from animals, rodents, insects. Bagged or loose garbage shall not be stored for more than 24 hours outside of an enclosed building or an approved receptacle. That looks like my car. No inoperable or junk vehicles, and I think one young lady here was asking about that. We do enforce what are called inoperable vehicles. It could be it has a flat tire. I've had some people say, well, oh, my car runs, but it's not registered. They have to be currently registered, no flat tires, broken windows, anything like that. It's still going to be an inoperable vehicle. If you can't drive it on the street legally and not have a cop pull you over, then it's time for it to go. And we do crack down on these repair shops in residents where they're working on cars constantly. So we did update that in our new code. Routine maintenance, like changing oil, you're changing your tires, things like that. That's fine. And something we would monitor. It doesn't become an ongoing everyday thing 7 days a week. Oh, then we have our weeds. Sidewalks, public places, and I think sometimes people think that weeds are not such a big deal, but it just doesn't look nice. So they cannot be in excess of 10 inches. It just creates a blighting situation and it just doesn't look good. Swimming pools. There's a green pool. And green pools tend to attract mosquitoes, things like that. So a lot of times we'll refer someone to the health department because they do have a vector program where they actually go out and either they shock the green water or they put a chemical in there to take care of that. But yeah, mosquitoes, no bueno. Exterior surfaces. I don't know if you have neighbors that have things like that. You have a home, you have to keep it up. Exterior surfaces of a building or structure. And there are a multitude of things that people would think, oh, well, my step's broken. It's not that big of a thing. It may not be, but siding, stucco, brick, stone, wood, exteriors, windows, broken windows, like I previously mentioned. Chimneys, painted surfaces, window screening, fences. Fences is a big issue. Retaining walls, some porches, outside stairs. They all have to be maintained by the person responsible for the property. And all premises must be structurally sound and impervious to moisture and weather elements. And this looks like my house too. Hey. Exterior of buildings, structures, signage, all buildings. I mean, would you like to live next door to me? Look at me. Detached garages, fences, walls, storage, structure shall be maintained in a structurally sound condition, free from blight, and in good repair. So, the key is for people to keep their properties up. Sleeping, here's a good one. Sleeping or living in accessory structure is a violation. I don't know if anybody's had the pleasure of having somebody live next door and they're living in a shed, but that's good. I'll talk to you. That's a no-no. A small one, addresses on buildings. This was another addition to the code when we updated it. Building shall approved, I'm not going to go into the size and all that. Buildings shall have approved address numbers that are legible and visible from the street or road fronting the property. And also good for, police or fire emergency crews. And if there's no address on the house and we go out for a code violation that's been reported, sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out which house it is. Oh, recreational vehicles. This has been kind of a topic that's come up recently on Facebook. One unoccupied RV is allowed in a residential zoning district and it has to be at the side of the house, behind the front facade of the house, so behind your front, or in the rear yard, may not be occupied, which means used for a man cave or anything like that, or somebody spending the night in there. So, yeah, or you can only have one. I want to emphasize that. Or they can put it in a garage. We get this a lot out here, especially in snowbird season, because family comes out and they bring all their RVs, and it becomes, somebody's house becomes an RV park. That's no good. Civil criminal citations and complaints. There's our courthouse. We send them a notice of violation. It could be civil or criminal. Basically, civil is Chapter 9, your weeds, your things like that. Criminal is going to be zoning based mostly. Living in the RV, running a business or something like that that's not approved. Fines, it does get to this point. We try to not let it get to this point, but some people just don't want to listen. First offense during 24 consecutive month period, penalty of $350. Second offense during that time is $600. So that's after 2 citations or 2 notices. The third offense, so after they've gone through those first 2, they've gone to court. Either they pled guilty or they didn't show up for court. Those are the first 2. The third offense and subsequent offenses within 24 months become criminal, which becomes a misdemeanor. So your friend next door living in the RV, after we go through all these steps, it becomes criminal. So it's going to go on the record. Civil won't. But yeah, anything zoning based is going to be criminal. These are some before and after. So this is what we try to do. This is before. This is a weed thing, and so I said weeds seem like they're minor. Look how it makes a big difference. And that's before and after. This is a nice one. Another before and after. So what we do is we take photos and then send them notices. If they don't respond, then it could escalate and go to court. But if they do comply, it's going to be the one on the right there. Oh, thanks, you did it, and we close the case out. Done, it's over with. Another cleaned property. These are some nice ones. Yeah. So, do we have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
There is a lot, Southern and Ironwood, that they cleared.
Okay.
Southern Ironwood behind the gas station there. Mm-hmm. And they put up a temporary chain link fence or whatever with signs on saying do not trespass.
Right.
Every good storm, the fence goes over. Eventually, somebody comes back out and puts it back up. But they cleared that land of, as you said, weeds, but actually in that particular area, that stuff looked much better than the ground down dirt now that's there, that's been there for more than a year. It's, when I've checked, it doesn't look like that's developed yet. I think maybe it was, but then I think maybe they backed off. So
Yeah,
is that
it
a code,
happens.
is that a code violation with that ugly fence temporary? And it's on both sides of the road too. I mean, on the other side of Ironwood, again, where they took down the, I guess it was a drugstore or something? Yeah, CVS.
CVS.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Both of them, they look horrible.
Right, I remember that one. I watched it get demolished.
Yeah, you and I both. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, right? So is that a code violation or is that what you want? 'Cause
Well, yeah, we just want the weeds out of there. One, it's a fire hazard, especially out here where, they get dried out.
right.
But if you have any other questions,
Is the temporary fence there appropriate?
The fence is okay, should be okay. If it's falling down, like I said, we contact the owners and let them know. And sometimes they fall down because people are going in there.
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
the
kids and
biggest
stuff.
reason why.
It's
they
not far
fall
from the high school and junior high and kids fool around, yeah.
down. Yeah.
Okay, so then the way it looks now is the way it's supposed to look until they develop it?
Yeah, it should be. I can check
It looks
further.
horrible.
Yeah, I can check further, and if you want to,
Okay.
take my card and call me, I'll look
Okay.
into it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rudy, correct me if I'm wrong, that owner there did that all on his own and was going to develop it and then pull back, is that right?
We're talking about the
CVS.
northwest corner of Southern and
The
Ironwood.
northeast corner of Southern and Ironwood, so behind the Circle
Behind
K.
the gas station there. Long time ago, it was gonna be a Smith's or Anderson supermarket, one of the two. The property owner is very difficult to get a hold of. The wall that is out there, the brick wall that's out there, belongs to the HOA neighborhood that's directly to the north and east of the gas station. Property owners are allowed to put 6-foot fences around their property. A lot of times that's done basically to keep homeless people out, to keep vagrants out, to keep the properties from becoming nuisance properties. But even though a fence may be up, the fence does need to be in good condition, and the yard that is inside the fence is still supposed to be maintained as well.
And then the CVS, the former CVS property?
That gentleman does not have a pending development proposal at this time. We talk to him once in a while. He's generally pretty cooperative.
But I agree with her, it looked better without the fence. So I live just down the road from there, and just this weekend, somebody drove a car with no tires down the road and parked it a few houses away from mine on Southern in the dirt shoulder right next to the BLM or the Arizona, I don't know what it is.
BLM land?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't have tires, the windows are down, it's been rained in for the last couple of days. This morning there was a tow truck out there, and I was like, yay! And I get home this evening and it is still out there.
Is it on the street or is it on a property?
It's on the shoulder
Okay.
of Southern. There's no houses on that side because
Okay,
I'm just east of the high school.
Correct.
So I'm her neighbor. And I live in the San Marcos houses.
Okay, yeah.
So I look out and see the desert and then the freeway. And it is just right across there. So would I call the cops?
Yes.
Well, you call non-emergency, I'll clarify, if it's in the street or on the shoulder, it's a vehicle, it's going to be non-emergency for the police, they'll come and tag it, and if it's not gone, they'll tow it. Our aspect of the inoperable vehicle issue is if it's on a property, your neighbor's got 3 or 4 or 5 cars there, flat tires, that's what we basically take care of issues on property.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
The non-emergency number for the police department, 982-8260. 982-8260. Okay, one more question back here.
I understand that you have go to a huge effort to protect people who complain about their neighbors.
Yes.
What kind of effort do you go to protect the people that are being harassed by their neighbors through all those calls you said that ended up being nothing?
Are you being, is a person being, which person is being harassed?
Hopefully nobody, but you didn't happen to mention any plan to protect people who could be harassed if they were being harassed.
Okay, can you explain more why the harassment? Is it because they called in a complaint or?
No, I in the past, I've lived in neighborhoods where they allowed that, even with the homeowners association, they allowed that. And believe me, harassment is not a fun thing to have. I mean,
I know.
we were being called on constantly.
I would try and talk to someone at the police department.
I just wondered if you guys had a plan of protection since it wasn't mentioned.
No, that would be more of a police department.
Or municipal court.
No,
Stop.
evidently there is never a plan for people using codes as an harassment. So, you know,
Oh, I see
heads
what you're
up, if you hate somebody, that's a good way to get back
Oh,
at them.
we get that a lot, infighting with neighbors, and there'll be no violation. We go out there and it's just people not getting along.
Yeah, well, praise God. So far, I've had 5 years of serenity here.
Great.
But you just didn't mention that, and you brought out, oh, you can be anonymous, so
Right.
nobody's going to mess with you, but
Well, if there's
nothing
no
about
violation, then
how
we're
you
not-
get protected from it.
Yeah.
State
Yeah.
laws don't really allow for that. But I would always tell anybody that if you have any question on anything along those lines that would appear to be a legal issue, would be something that that you should call the police on, call the non-emergency number, please do. Because what I always hear from my folks and from the police folks is they would rather you call because you don't know if all the other neighbors have already called, and now they have a little bit stronger case on something. So always be aware of calling the non-emergency number. If you're not sure about something, call. Don't
Right.
ever, never hesitate to call. All right.
Or if you see something, say something. Be our eyes and ears out there.
Chief Pooley will tell us that when he comes and visits us later in the class. Okay, other questions up here? Everybody ready for a quick break? Who's next? Sid?
Adrian.
Adrian, you next? Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll have Adrian talk about what he's going to talk about.
I've been doing this 9 years, so. Oh, yes. I know, I could do what I want.
Why did the Scarecrow get an award? Because he's outstanding in his field. Dad jokes. Yes. We sure hope so. The one that's up north, you mean? Northwest, northeast town here? That is what we are hoping for. what is that, would that be a 404?
They'd have to do a low mark, so they'd have to do a map revision to it, so
Yeah.
that process takes a while, but
Right.
the flow is going to be dramatically decreased.
Then it would reduce the width of the flood zone.
That's right.
That's the idea, to try and, because there's so many properties up there, east of Tomahawk, north of Superstition, that are greatly impacted by this huge
Right.
flood zone.
Well, the water can't get underneath Superstition there,
Yeah,
so it gets wider.
right.
And then it crosses the road and it comes on our property.
Ah, okay.
And, because the back end of my property, the back 100 foot, is in a flood zone.
Uh-huh.
And I'm west of Wickiup and just north of Greasewood.
Okay.
And that, and this last one was a really, really bad one.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
last flood we had.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my fence is completely gone.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it washed away a lot of dirt.
Yeah.
And it's as hard as a rock right now, the property.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, we've been there 20 years, and this was the worst one I've seen back there. Because usually the water, it goes away.
Right.
This one here, it removed the dirt.
Yeah, all the topsoil.
Yeah, I mean bad. And I drive across it now, and it's pretty bad. I gotta get it graded and all that, but I was wondering, like, because I got a legal survey done, and it does show the back 100 foot. Is in, I think there's 2 flood zones, an A and a B.
Yeah, right. Well, there's the flood zone and then there's the floodway.
That could
So the flood zone is typically wider than the floodway itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult to construct anything in a floodway. In the flood zone, it's possible to construct stuff with engineering within certain parameters, and breakaway fences and stuff like that.
Will that go away though?
It might be relieved somewhat if FEMA agrees that the improvements that were made up north have a diminishing effect on the floodway. Yes, it probably won't go away completely, but the flood zone might be reduced in width, which would allow for certain property owners to have more usable property and hopefully less flooding problems. That's the goal.
I would say if the water can get underneath the Superstition and that,
Yeah.
and
Well,
maybe across Tomahawk.
Yeah. Though, of course, those types of improvements are very expensive, but maybe, have you talked to Emil, our city engineer? That would be within the realm of what they do, where they're gonna construct culverts and box culverts and things like that. Maybe that's, in their 5-year plan, I'm not sure.
Because a lot
But-
of that, like where Superstition is, it's filled up with sand.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, every time we have a good rain, the Public Works guys are out there with the tractors scraping the sand away,
Yeah, but it's filled up now.
Yeah,
And once it rains, it can't go nowhere, but it goes over the road.
yeah,
And then it gets wider,
yeah.
and I was thinking, can you fill the property up?
No, well,
I mean, like,
but then you're not, all you're doing is spreading the problem onto other properties. And then it can become a civil matter.
but actually, the properties next to me, there's no homes.
Right.
It's because we're right at Wickiup and Greasewood there, and the guy south of me's got a horse arena,
Yeah,
and it floods terrible.
yeah,
And the people north of me, they got 2.5 acres, and their house always floods. They built it level
Yes, it does.
It goes across the road, it goes
Yeah.
through Marnie's, it knocks the guy's fence down next to me, cause he had to put it up about 4 times now.
Yeah.
It flows on our property, all the junk goes across, and then it goes back across where Greasewood is, goes on that BLM property right there, that superstition,
Yeah.
and it's fine, I told him.
Emil is the city engineer. Emil is the city's expert on flood zone issues and on that flood zone project that's going to be built up north. I think he's probably the best guy to answer those types of questions. What type of improvements may be planned in the future along Superstition? He's the go-to guy.
Cause actually, it took away a lot of the road too,
Yeah.
like the shoulder of the
Yeah,
road.
they're constantly going out there
It
repairing.
washed like this much of the dirt along the road right there,
Yeah.
behind our property and that, so it's doing some damage back there
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Everybody settle down. Sit down, folks. Sit down over there. Okay, we continue on with development services and building safety inspections coming up. And here is Adrian Alegria.
Thank you all. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Adrian Alegria. I'm the Building Safety Manager for the Building and Safety and Inspections Division, Long Lane. I'm here today to talk about the service that we provide in building safety. My presentation is very short, but definitely a general overview about what we do and how we process permits, construction permits, building permits. Basically, the Building Safety and Inspection Division is committed to public safety. Basically, we coordinate the permitting process and proper use of the building codes by basically administer the building, the electrical, the fire, the mechanical, energy conservation, accessibility regulations, local and state laws for construction and maintenance on industrial, commercial, and residential private property. Well, the codes that we have is basically, they are set up for the minimum requirements. To provide reasonable, that's the key of the work, is basically minimum reasonable level of safety for public health and general welfare through structural strength. We don't want houses to fall apart or any other walls to fall as well. And mean of egress facilities for and stability, basically on commercial property, sanitation, light ventilation, and any conservation and safety to life and property from fire and explosion and other hazards. How we do that, we have a 4 process. Basically, I'm the building safety manager. I make sure that basically all process go well through the permitted process when the applicant submitted and the plan review, the inspections, and then the completion. I have right now 2 permit technicians that basically that they collect all the documentation. Let's say John want to build a bedroom addition to his house, basically, or we have everything online, and basically this is the way that we do it. Permit application, everything is online. We no longer use paper. You can submit permits in the commodity of your house. And our permit technicians, basically, they collect all that information. They assure all the documentation that is needed, let's say for residential, for commercial, or for John doing a bedroom addition, he has complete documents for us to review and process. Our permit technicians will basically process everything. Once the documentation is collected and everything is in order, they put it in a workflow for the plan reviewers. The plan reviewer is basically the technical guy, is the person, by the way, that's not me. But basically the plans examiner is basically the technical person. Normally they have a background in construction engineering, and basically they have knowledge on the building codes, certifications, And what they do is basically review the plans that are submitted. They make sure the documentation, what is proposed, the scope of work meet the codes that we have adopted. And I'm gonna explain a little bit more on that. Well, let's say that the plan reviewer find out something that doesn't meet code. The communication is via electronic. Basically, he send an email to the applicant, and then he say, all right, you need to make these corrections. We normally work with letters and putting everything in writing and specify what items need to be corrected. If he approved the plans, basically he stamp it, and he send those plans back to the permit technicians. The permit technicians, again, basically they create the permit placard. Permit placard is the one that you guys see, we call permit, that basically contain specific information for the property and the listed inspections that are required for that particular work. Everything online, basically they communicate to the applicant online. And once the applicant has all the documentation, approved plans, and pay fees, let me use back again the example of John doing a bedroom addition. If that addition require foundation, walls, roof system, basically John, what he needs to do is construct the foundation, which will be the first inspection, constructed and create the trench in according with the dimensions that are in the approved plans. Once that is done, we have the system to request inspection 1 day in advance. So basically, you call for the inspection today, and the inspector will show up next day. And the inspector will see the plans. It will verify the foundation or the system is according with the plans. And we move on in the process, foundation, walls, roof system, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. I'm trying to be very general because every trade is very specific and it has his own requirements. What is a building code? I mean, I mentioned several times the building code. Basically, the building code is a set for the rules, basically for the designer to get familiar in minimum standards to construct buildings or non-buildings. Non-buildings like installation of electrical, installation of a mechanical system, air conditioning, and as well plumbing and sewer. The intent of the code is, the primary intent is of the building regulation is to provide reasonable controls of design, construction, use occupancy, special and commercial, and maintenance of the buildings and their facilities in various components, electrical, mechanical, plumbing again. Building codes are adopted to provide, again, reasonable level of safety and protection of the public health, general welfare, and property. Definitely building codes maintain safety communities. We don't want houses to fall apart and injure people. The city of Apache Junction have adopted codes to a process. And one of the codes that we have is the 2018 International Residential Code. Basically, it's primary for residential construction. Residential construction, patios, detached structures, garages, and things like that. And this is definitely the code. It's 900-something pages divided in architectural, structural, electrical, mechanical, plumbing. We kind of read, we get familiar with that, and we applicable.
And Adrian has it memorized.
Thank you. I've been doing this one for 18 years and kind of know where to find out. Anyways, well, that's the residential code that we have adopted. As well, we have the International Building Code. It's applicable more for commercial. And by reference, and I think Rudy mentioned, we have the ADA accessibility code, which is mainly provided for those people that are disabled to approach a building in a safe way. And basically, as well, we protect the public entering into a building, a retail store, that they know where their exit, that they are safe in those places. The rest of the codes, we have more codes adopted. Basically, we have the National Electrical Code. There's another code. It's close to 800 pages as well. It has very specific requirement only for electrical and in commercial property. And we have a fire code, plumbing code, mechanical code, energy conservation code, existing building code, fuel gas, every applicable in commercial. The only one that I can say is a double is the international swimming pool. That code came 3 years ago, and before it was mainly specific for residential. Right now, it's both address commercial and residential. It has very specific requirements and safety protection, barriers, and things like that. All right, I would like to bring an example of what is a code, what is actually code. This is one of the sections in the residential code. This is a minor example related to electrical and electrical receptacle. Basically, you will need to find out an electrical receptacle in every kitchen, family room, dining room, bedroom, recreational rooms, and it has to meet some spacing. Going back to the John doing on a bedroom, basically the first receptacle it has to be, if we have a door, the first receptacle has to be between 6 feet. And from that receptacle to the next receptacle, it has to be 12 feet. It's just a simple requirement. So maybe you're thinking, on my house, why they don't put in the receptacle in the middle and every wall? Well, it has to meet that receptacle. You can have more receptacles, but that's pretty much the minimum requirement. Sorry that I'm not getting in deep in the other trays, but it's to extend. And that's it. I promise it was short. Any questions? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So I've been a special education teacher for a long time, so I really am very familiar with ADA regulations and requirements. What is the complaint process for when you see an obvious or a not quite so obvious ADA violation?
Well, definitely it's communication through us, and we'll verify maybe it's an existing building that we kind of grandfather that. If it is a recent evaluation and we cannot find that accomplished through our process, definitely is the Department of Justice Civil Rights, and they will have a special team to go and find out the violation and pursue complaint. Excuse me? No, we don't. Yes, we can refer you with the information and location and phone numbers for them.
With like getting a permit to build a new house, do they have to issue one for every single new house that's going in the South? Or do they get like bulk permits to be able to do that? Because that seems like a lot of permits and a lot of inspections.
Well, we issue one permit for every property. In the case if you're thinking about the new subdivision that is going on, what we do is basically we review a set of standard plans. And just months ago, we reviewed 21 standard plans, and they can use that plan for every specific lot. Just they switch it and they flip it, and yeah. If it is on a builder, I mean, he provides his own set of construction plans. We review those, and we issue just for that specific location.
So you had spoken earlier about flood zones. So I'm sure there are certain codes that houses need to meet when they're in a flood zone.
Absolutely.
And we talked earlier in the year about some of the houses, their land is being washed away because of some of the washes that are in those flood zones, I would presume. Mm-hmm. Is it because those houses were built before codes or not up to code, or the flood zone has changed around those houses?
A lot of the houses that are currently in our flood zone areas were constructed either under more less restrictive codes, maybe is the correct word to use, or they were constructed before the city was a city, or they were constructed without permits. particularly a lot of the shade structures and storage buildings and accessory buildings. Those tend to go pop up on the weekend, and along comes a good rain, and they float down the wash with the water. It is possible to build in a flood zone. It's even possible to build in an actual floodway, but now we're talking specialized engineering, we're talking reinforced foundations, elevated buildings, things like that. But a lot of what you see constructed out there today probably predates the city, or at least a lot of it does. It is, and every once in a while we do get development proposals for structures that are in a flood zone A, what's called a flood zone A according to FEMA, and like I said, that would require special engineering, and those types of structures tend to tolerate the flood events better than structures that aren't built with special engineering.
Just to complement, there's definitely as an engineer who need to design the foundation and create an elevation above the flood level of the water. Normally you will see a tall foundation, and yeah.
But maybe someday we'll have other solutions to try to deal with
Yes,
flooding.
This gentleman over here, and if you've had a chance to attend our city council meetings over the last month or so, our city engineer, Emil Schmid, has been informing the council about a major flood control structure that's going to be built just northeast of the city. Some of you may be familiar with Weeks Wash. Weeks Wash is a major flood zone that affects particularly the eastern part of the city. Of course, away from the mountain, everything tends to flow in a southwesterly direction, but it is a grant-funded structure that hopefully will alleviate some of the floodway width and floodway impacts that are caused by Weeks Wash. And that's a whole other ball of wax, and our city engineer, has engineering been to it?
We haven't even gotten that far.
Okay.
It's really just
When Emil's
proposed.
in front of you, hit him up with those questions.
That's right. It is a proposed project. There is a lot of hoops that would have to jump through and things to get around. There's 3 different landowners of area that we're talking about, the state, the feds.
And it's a years-long.
Oh, yeah, it would be several years, and of course would be very
Yeah, but
expensive.
Emil is also currently our floodplain administrator. So when Adrian or Leslie get a building permit application, and part of that structure is in the flood zone or anywhere near the flood zone, we make sure we have Emil, our city engineer, double check it for the types of regulations, floodplain requirements that he is qualified to look for. So it's a collaborative process. You know, building often involves engineering, involves other disciplines that need to lend their expertise. Our friends at the fire district also help review all of our commercial structures. Does, this commercial building need sprinklers? Are they meeting other fire codes and stuff? So we work very collaboratively with our other agencies for certain projects when need be.
Other questions?
Right.
Everybody's going to run out and build a house now. All right.
Oh, definitely, if you guys planning to build something, we're definitely here to help. We answer any questions, guide you through. It's better to starting with us, give you the the specific requirements, and and have a success addition. I have with me Leslie Castillo. She have a small presentation as well for community outreach, and thank you so much for your attention.
Okay, so my name's Leslie. I'm one of the permit technicians for the Building Safety Department, and I get to kind of talk about the fun part of what we do. So every year, well, let me rephrase that. For the last 3 years, we have tried to celebrate what we call Building Safety Month. The International Code Council, which is right now currently the organization where we've adopted our codes from, it is the most nationally recognized organization right now for codes. So every year they celebrate Building Safety Month in the month of May. And so we've tried to do an event to create community outreach here within our Building and Safety Department, and brought the planning and zoning and GIS and everybody to try to to bring it all together and create some type of an event. We usually do a proclamation, we hold our event, and we can't obviously create anything good without sponsors, so we've been able to do that. There is the, every year, the International Code Council puts out a kind of a theme. So they choose themes every week around building and safety. Sometimes it's careers in construction. This year, their campaign is It Starts With You. So every week they have a theme. And so we have focused our community event this year around weeks 1 and 2. We will do a proclamation. The mayor will read that at one of the city council meetings and basically says, Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council. We recognize it here in the city of Apache Junction to remind the public about the critical roles that codes play and officials. Sorry. Community outreach plays an important role in the education of our community. We're using this opportunity this year to include the Apache Junction High School students. They do have a construction technologies course, and it serves grades 9 through 12 with the intent that seniors, when they pass, will have their OSHA safety cards and be able to step out and either continue education or step right out into the workforce after completing that class. So we're collaborating with them. We collaborated with them a little bit last year, and it was a fun event. We took about a 2-hour event, and we had presenters that talked. We focused last year on careers in construction and tried to focus it a little bit on careers within the city that people don't normally think about when you think about construction, such as inspectors and building officials and permit technicians and planners. So we tried to bring it around that. We had a 2-hour event. We had a sponsor that provided lunch. The fire department got involved. Sewer district came out and did a presentation. It was a fun event. We were able to give out bags with swag, and the city logo was printed on it. This year, we're trying to grow on that. What I'm trying to pull together right now, it's not fully in play, and I don't have my date set, focusing on May 9th, but we're going to try to do another 2-hour event with sponsors, focusing on the first 2 weeks of the theme from the International Code Council. I'm going to try to do presenters. I did we're going to do a t-shirt contest, a t-shirt design contest. So the children or the students at Apache Junction High School who are currently enrolled in the constructions technology course from grades 9 to 12 are going to get to design the t-shirt for this year's 2023 Building Safety Month event. And we're going to vote on that, and they're going to get a $100 prize sponsored by us. And then obviously their design will be printed on shirts, and all the students in all the classes will get a shirt with their design on it. Trying to get lunch sponsored. We did get some games and, or prizes, I'm sorry, for us to be able to put on some type of a challenge or game, like a group challenge. And then we're trying to get promotional items for education, swag, anything with companies' logos on it that has to do with construction and safety. And that's what we're working on this year. So just kind of a little bit of a blurb to give you guys kind of an idea of what we're trying to do to help our community and reach out. So, any questions? Did I already send this to you? Huh? I have not yet. No. I don't know that I have their contact information for the marketing team. I have yours. Okay, I will send it to you, yes. Okay. So, anybody else? Okay.
You ready? Okay. We're going to keep going. We're looking good. Here's the man. If you have any questions at all about the development going on down south, this is the man to ask. Well, you could ask Holly too, but there you go. That's it.
Indeed.
And of course, he's been with the city now for 5 years. Wow. And has taken on increasingly important roles with the city, and now is, well, he's going to tell you a little bit about what's going on down south and maybe a little bit of what he does as well. Sidney Urias, right there.
Thank you, Al. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Like Al said, my name is Sidney Urias, main planning manager and main project manager for Supercenter Vistas, also known as the development down south. I feel like Holly should be giving this presentation. She's very familiar with it. Just a show of hands, who is familiar or know of the development that's happening down south? Who's driven by it, seen the construction, been stuck in traffic, been frustrated, honked your horn, etc. So yes, that is underway. This is a picture of last week. Walls are going up. It's happening. So this is kind of been master planned for a while now. Most recently, in the last 3 years, has been the bulk effort for this development. In the 2020, really the planning effort started with 2 developers, Deerhorn and Brookfield residential communities. Those 2 developers and the city have partnered to master plan approximately 8,000 acres, which is the area here outlined in your screen. That area is outlined from baseline to the SR24, so that's the north-south parameter, and the east-west parameter is from Meridian to the Cap Canal. The project itself is divided into really 2 large phases, or what we call the auction property and the retained property. The retained property is the area in blue there in the center. Last year in late October, City Council approved the master planning of these 8,000 acres. And the city also annexed 6,000 acres approximately. So the area really down south of Elliott before the 5th of October last year was not in our city limits. We annexed it that night. We also, the City Council also approved 2 master planned documents. Like I mentioned, one of them is noted to be the auction property master plan, and the other one is the retained property master plan. We also approved 2 development agreements and 2 community facilities districts, which I won't go into, very boring stuff. So like I said, the master planning happened through this process. The north side of town is really the area that is slated to be kind of the employment corridor, industrial manufacturing. There is some site limitations for residential use there, so the best use for that would be for manufacturing and industrial uses, and of course its proximity to the US 60 made complete sense. The property is really divided in 3 parts. Of course, the north side that I just mentioned, the auction property that is in blue, that is the first phase of development. The first phase of development is approximately 3,000 acres or so. Those 3,000 acres cover or will facilitate approximately 11,000 homes, and will also facilitate community commercial within that blue area here. So just to give you, I know 3,000 acres makes sense to really kind of industry people, but it's 4 square miles. So that for that to make a little bit better sense. The southern half that is adjacent to the SR24 is slated to be regional commercial and high-density residential, since the SR24 will continue west and then ultimately south there. The second phase of development, or the later phases of development, is known as the retained property, as I mentioned. That is the surrounding area that surrounds this blue area here. That area is slated to house or to facilitate approximately 16,000 new homes. So quite a bit of development down south that is happening. Hate to scare you. When that is all built out, that would be about 63,000 new people in the city of HA. Yeah, so quite a bit of development is happening in the city, but that is going to happen over a very long period of time. The first phase of development here in the blue, the first 4 square miles, due to market conditions, interest rates, et cetera, market fluctuations, market trends, you have probably noticed that there's been a slowdown in real estate, of course. We're probably thinking, originally we're thinking about maybe build out would be about 7 to 10 years. Maybe it's a little longer now due to market conditions. The remainder of the retained property, that's probably a 30 to 40 year effort. So this growth is not going to happen overnight. I heard some gaps when I said 63,000 new people. It's going to happen over a 30 to really 50 year period. So that is not going to be, in the next few years or so. Hopefully I'll be retired by then. So I'm glad I laughed. You guys are laughing. Kimberly had some good jokes. Adrian had some good jokes. In order to facilitate the development of the first 4 square miles, there's a number of master planning that is done and what we call major infrastructure projects, which are outlined in this screen here on this slide. We have about 9 major projects, which I'm not sure if I'm going to go into all of them in depth, but really they are water plant expansions, they are water campuses, they are non-potable reservoirs, and if you guys have additional questions about that at the end, I'll be happy to go more in depth. Of course, we have the Ironwood, that is a major corridor from the south to the US 60 that is under construction. When that is completed, Ironwood would be 6 lanes, 3 lanes north, 3 lanes south with a beautiful landscape median. We also have the construction of Ray Avenue, both the west half and the east half of Ray Avenue. The construction of probably the west half of Ray Avenue here outlined in number 7 is pretty close. Ray Avenue is probably going to be paved in the next few weeks or so. And also we have items number 5 and 6. Which I will show in a second. Those are model homes that are currently under construction. So those are really the first of 11,000 homes that are going to be built in this area that are currently under construction. Like I mentioned, the master plan efforts were a group effort, both with the city, the residents, and of course 2 developers that are D.R. Horton and Brookfield. They have divided the first 4 square miles really in half, roughly. The general parameters of that split is Ironwood. The west half is owned by D.R. Horton. The first phase of their first phase is this what's shown on the screen here. This road, as of now, is known as Salina Avenue. It is the half-section road between Warner and Ray Road. These lots south of Salina total about 1,200 lots. So these lots have been approved by City Council. They are in compliance with the master plan that was approved a year or so ago. And most recently, they have parcel 19.1 here in the corner has been paved. Like I mentioned, the Ray Road is going to be paved very soon. So is this north-south collector and Reverence. And really, the remainder 3 parcels on this end will also be paved. Along with this is planning is amenities. So there's a number of amenities that the developers are providing. Trails, clubhouses, pools, lake systems that are being provided. So it's going to be a very nice community development down there. So these are the first 3 houses that are currently under construction. This is on the D.R. Horton side. This picture was as of last week. I think in the next few weeks or so, they are going to be done with the first 3 houses at Superstition Vistas. Now, on the east side, as I mentioned, Brookfield is in charge of those development efforts. This first phase of their first phase is also about 1,200 lots or so. They are not moving as fast as the one, but they are moving. Their First phase of development is most likely going to be the density residential that is probably located, along, this wraps this commercial corner, which is Ironwood and Ray, as well as the townhome units here and these lots to the south. They're probably going to go vertical maybe by the end of the year or so. So they're not as much of a rush as Deerhorn at this time. This is an aerial perspective of Superstition Vistas. You guys have probably just seen it from, of course, just Ironwood, but this is the aerial perspective of Superstition Vistas. Really outlines the first phase of Superstition Vistas. So what this picture shows is really all the lot layouts, the street networks, all the mass grading, and all the fine grading that has been done up to this point. Just to go over this aerial, we have Ray Road here. As I mentioned, this is going to be paved very soon. Parcel 19.1, like I just mentioned, has already been paved. We have Ironwood currently under construction. All the infrastructure in Ironwood is currently being completed now. Ray Road on the Brookfield side, and then we have the eastern parameters of the first 4 square miles at Idaho. That completes my overview for Superstition Vistas. I'd love to answer any questions if there are any. Also, Holly's here to help me answer those questions as well.
I also like how you're being fair to both of us, but I know we are your favorite.
Okay, so for those of you who hadn't figured it out by now, Holly Cray here is from Brookfield Properties. She's taking the class as she gets to learn a little bit more about the community that, of course, they're building in. So it's very nice to have Holly as part of the class. So if we have any questions about that half, then you could ask her. Okay, you want to go first?
No tough questions.
No tough questions. Schools, hospitals, fire stations?
Yes, absolutely. So here what we call is the chassis plan for the first 4 square miles. Brookfield is planning to have a school here in this blue area. In fact, I think you could actually see the outline of that area here. So yes, schools will be planned. We also have sites for a fire station that is going to be on the north side of Warner on the Brookfield side. And we also have area set apart for a library and a sub-police station, which is here, there. So yes, we want it to be a cohesive community, so we have included those public amenities.
You show Idaho Road on the Brookfield, I'm sorry, Brookfield side. When is the timeline for that to be paved and punched through into the city?
Good question, Holly. That is probably going to be a while. Of course, it's the most eastern part of the development. Their development efforts are really focused on the Ray Road, since the majority of the traffic that will access the site will be probably coming off of the 24, and they are working from Ironwood going west on the Brookfield side and from Ironwood going east on the Deerhorn side. So the edges of the community will probably be the last to be done. But of course, as you saw from the perspective aerial, they have been graded, and the outline of road is there, but the paving will probably be maybe a year or so out, or perhaps less.
Ray Avenue rather than Ray Road?
I'm going to defer that question to Rudy.
Rudy.
Avenue.
Ray Avenue, yes. You must forgive me that sometimes I say Ray Road. Yeah, I know. Yeah, yes. So, yeah, so the city...
Is there a reason?
Yes, the city has a street classification plan that is, as old as the city is, and believe it or not, everything north of Apache Trail and Junction, that's an east-west street is called a street. Everything south of Apache Trail and Junction is called an avenue. Everything that is west of Idaho in a north-south direction is called a drive. Everything that is east of Idaho in a north-south direction is called a road. So there's a logic to it. I didn't invent it, but that's why everything south of Apache Trail is called an avenue, and we're going to have way more avenues than we do streets.
So where do we get Boulevard from?
Well, there's a couple of special exceptions. There's North Apache Trail, there's Superstition Boulevard, there's a couple of courts, a couple of lanes. So there are some deviations to that. There are some deviations.
Make an exception for Ray Road?
No, actually Broadway isn't Broadway, also Broadway Avenue, but it's Broadway Road in
Avenue,
Mesa.
Southern Avenue, yeah, Elliott Avenue, they're all avenues south of Apache Trail.
So another instance where AJ will be unique. So
That's right.
It's good. So set us
Like-
apart. It'll set us apart.
Okay. Another question.
And it all has to do with the center of town, which is the intersection of Idaho and Junction. That is the 0 point of the city.
Are these new developments going to be utilizing our current dump on Baseline?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long do you think that dump will be able to handle all this activity?
The landfill, under a contract with the city, is supposed to close by 2035. It can close sooner than 2035, but it probably won't close until 2035. And then, of course, before that happening, we're going to need to figure out what we're going to do about trash collection, because the next nearest landfill is either way east of us or way west of us. That is a very big topic of discussion, because if there is no local landfill, then you have to transfer all of your garbage somewhere else. So at the time that agreement was made, there were a lot of folks in the city who were very interested in seeing the closure of the landfill. So everything can always be revisited, but right now the closure date is estimated to be 2035.
Other questions? One more.
So regarding the school that, let's see, was it Brookfield side that it was? What are we looking at, like a K-12, K through 6, junior high? Okay.
Thank you, Holly.
By the way, Holly's answer for those of you watching online was it's a K through 12 school, correct?
For the millions of people watching online tonight.
Is there an environmental impact statement that addresses habitat and water?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a number of master infrastructure documents that were done and completed for the master planning of the first 4 square miles. In fact, they are on our website. We have a Superstition Vistas landing page. Not only do we have the master infrastructure documents that cover all the civil work, the master water report, we have traffic reports, and then we have the 2 master plan community documents that I mentioned. So yeah, all that information is on our landing page.
More.
So which area is the area that streets are named after cacti? So I do patrol for AJPD, and I was just wondering, someone told me about 800 codes too, but I was wondering, is there a certain part of AJ, who names the streets?
The street classification guide basically, city council names the streets, but the guide does call for local streets to be named after local fauna, local plants, things that are indigenous to the area. Of course, private streets can deviate from that, but the public streets try to follow some kind of theme that relates to the area.
Remember that some of our RV parks and some of our areas are privately owned, so they oversee their own streets, and so they can name their own streets along the way. You can name it after whatever they want. Over here.
I've just wondered about Apache Junction with all the master planning going on. Are they going to have something that really people consider a center part of the city? instead of eclectic spots here and there that people go to?
Great question, yes, and that is a topic of conversation. When the master plan, when the general plan was approved, the general plan outlines a downtown area that is, what are the general parameters, Rudy? It's the east side or is,
It's basically the area between Plaza and on the west, Royal Palm on the east, Superstition on the north, and Broadway on the south. That's what we hope will be the heart of the city, what we are trying to plan as a downtown area. That's where we hope to get a higher concentration of restaurants, higher concentration of retail and shopping opportunities and those things. But it does also allow the opportunity for multifamily, which is good because you want a higher density in your downtown area to support those businesses and those activities, and that is also part of the planning process that we deal with on a daily basis.
Is there going to be some kind of mass transit to bring all these people to these restaurants in downtown?
Probably not for a long time.
But it's a good time to do it while the space is there and it's open land, and put in a rail, put in a bus line.
I wish we could convince ADOT of that. The light rail right now is somewhere in East Mesa. I don't think it even goes to Power Road. It's on Gilbert. We have tried over the years on several occasions to try and maybe implement a bus service of some kind out here. Apparently they tell us that we don't have the numbers, but that is also a topic of discussion. Once upon a time, we had one trolley that drove up and down Apache Trail, taking people to the 2 or 3 major shopping centers that we had here. And I think that lasted for 1, maybe 2 summers because there was very little ridership on the one mass transit or public transit opportunity that we try to implement. But as more people come to Apache Junction, as the numbers and the demographics become better for more types of public transit, that discussion will pick up again. One of the things that I can tell you about right now is ADOT is looking at another major north-south connector. The north-south freeway, which would basically be just a little bitty town, probably at about Mountain View or so, that would connect us to Florence and Coolidge and places like that. So basically another freeway. There's also been talk about Gold Canyon Bypass, but as far as bus service, rail service, those kinds of things, those discussions are probably still a ways off.
Unless, of course, you have $1 billion to spend on getting light rail or something like that. The cost is the first thing. It's the Valley Metro, whoever runs mass transit, that's the first thing they look at before they even consider any kind of new routes.
And the legislature is trying to take away funds from Valley Metro.
Exactly. So there you go.
Yeah. So.
All right.
I want to thank everyone for attending. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please contact Holly. And thank you so much.
And thank you for being involved. This is great. This is how we all work together. You learn about the community. We learn about you. We get to meet people. So thank you for being part of Citizens Leadership Institute.
Okay. Let me turn off this mic. And before I'm going to send you all away, I will remind you that we'll be back in 2 weeks right here in the chambers. But as I promised, remember, as part of the class, you are, and I'll send this to everybody so you don't have to write it down. We ask you to attend at least one city council and one planning and zoning meeting. So those are the scheduled meetings for the city council over the next 6 weeks or so. Through our work sessions are discussion meetings. If you have not seen them online or been to one, that's where new topics are brought up and new ideas are discussed. For example, the Weeks Wash Retention Area Project, which is still just a proposal, very, very early on in the process. That was brought up at a work session. No work session this week because the 20th is President's Day, so the city is closed on Monday. But there will be a regular meeting on Tuesday. And remember that the city council regularly meets on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. So that's that schedule. Now, Rudy, you can help me with this. The Planning and Zoning Commission meets on the second and fourth Tuesdays. However, they only meet when they actually have items in which they need to discuss. So they do not meet on every second and fourth Tuesday. But those are the second and fourth Tuesdays for the next couple months. Rudy, any chance?
We just had a meeting just last Tuesday.
Right.
We don't have any development proposals pending at this time, so we probably will not have a meeting, well, we won't have a meeting on February 28th, but I'm hoping that we do have an item or two for the meeting of March 28th.
Okay, there you go.
You can always give us a call, and we'd be happy to let you know if something's coming up.
And I will try to keep in touch with Rudy so we can let everybody know when next meetings will be held. Fair enough? They're also at 7 o'clock right here in the council chambers as well. Okay. Other than that, I will do my usual reminder. If you haven't already signed up for the city newsletter, please do so. Go to the website or go to apachejunctionaz.gov/newsletter so you can sign up. That's the weekly update that I do, that I send out every Thursday. Actually, Matthew sends it out every Thursday. And it's a good place to start for anything going on. Now, if you are a runner, where are you going to be on Sunday, Jody? The Lost Dutchman Marathon. It's the 22nd Lost Dutchman Marathon, what I always refer to as the most picturesque marathon you could ever run. It goes from Gold Canyon through the foothills and finishes up at Prospector Park on Sunday morning. That is the marathon that is run by a wonderful nonprofit group that has donated over $778,000 to community groups in the city over the 20-plus years of the existence of the marathon. So we want to give them a shout out and say thank you. And that kind of kicks off the whole Lost Dutchman event and fun stuff that we do. The carnival and rodeo and parade are the following weekend, 24th, 25th, and 26th of February. The rodeo is held in the afternoons on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The carnival goes all day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the parade right here downtown, as Rudy likes to say, is on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, starting around the focal point and going down Apache Trail. So lots and lots of activities all around Lost Dutchman Days. You can read all about it, again, on the city homepage. I always remind you, if you're not sure about something or you don't know about something, go to the website. You might be able to find it there. If you can't find it, call me, and I'll make sure it gets up there. So that's the rest of the month. It's a very, very busy month. Otherwise, we will see you after all of that in 2 weeks right here, back here. And as always, please drive home safely. Good night.